Welcome to KRQE's New Mexico News Insiders, 2025 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award winner for Best Podcast. Here's Gabrielle Burkhart and Chris McKee.
We are inching closer to Election Day, November 4th, where voters will decide on really important issues, including who will be the next mayor of Albuquerque for the next 4 years.
Yeah, for the last 8 years, Albuquerque's mayor has been Tim Keller, and he is running for a third term, but he's also facing 5 other candidates. Small business owner Mayling Armijo, retired firefighter Eddie Varela, also former U.S. Attorney for New Mexico Alex Uballez, current Albuquerque City Councilor Louie Sanchez, and finally the former Bernalillo County Sheriff Darren White. They are all on the ballot and actively in the race at this point. And for this week's election-focused episode of New Mexico News Insiders, we've invited all of those candidates onto the show.
Yeah, we've asked all 6 mayoral candidates to come in and answer the same round of questions about topics we know people care about. We'll cover crime, homelessness, immigration, and the economy so voters can get a better idea of who each candidate is and what their plans are. Each of them have 10 minutes to answer the same line of questioning. Their names were randomly selected to pick the order of appearance for the candidates on the show. You can watch that whole process on our social media channels, but let's get started.
We're here with Mayling Armijo. You describe yourself as a Navy veteran and a champion for small business. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, crime remains a top-of-mind subject, I think, for a lot of Albuquerque voters. What will you do as mayor to reduce crime? Do you have anyone in mind as well for police chief?
So for crime, my priorities are to boost recruitment, hire a new police chief, and enact community policing initiatives. I do not have a police chief in mind. I would prefer to hire internally as opposed to out of state.
Okay. And when it comes to reducing crime or addressing crime, what do you have in mind?
Well, we just need more cops. We just don't have enough cops on the streets to respond to calls and to the crime that's happening. So things are getting out of hand. We need to hire more police officers and fund beat patrols, neighborhood liaisons, and really focus on mental health crisis teams. It's not just more cruisers and overtime. It's improve our officer recruitment by focusing on veterans and launching a high school police service aid program. I think will help us increase our numbers so that we can address the crime that's happening.
What is most alarming about crime in Albuquerque for you right now?
That it's going unaddressed. I mean, the delay times for when somebody calls APD, the delay response times. We were at a forum last night at the Baptist Church, and Louie Sanchez was with us, and he saw a domestic violence situation happen across the street. He called APD, and it was half an hour, and they still had not responded.
Mm-hmm. And that's concerning.
That's very concerning. That's very concerning, especially in a DV situation.
Yeah. So we also know homelessness is another issue. How do you feel about city-sanctioned homeless camps?
I'm not against safe camping zones tied to services like sanitation, security, and mental health. But what I don't want them is near schools and public transit. But we also need to start cracking down on criminal behavior in the homeless camps, and but really focus on investing in mixed income developments, transitional housing. We just don't have enough beds to address the number of homeless on the streets. So we need to think of alternative situations and what we can do. But at the same time, we can't allow the criminal activity, because I truly believe that crime and homelessness are tied together, as well as addiction.
Mm-hmm. What, if anything, should be done with the large homeless encampments that you can see, near First Street and I-40, not too far from where the old Coronado Park used to be?
Right. So I think there are enough services and beds to address a good bulk of it, and that needs to, it's not okay. We have an ordinance in place that says they're not allowed to do that. And we need to enforce that, because the businesses in that area are suffering. And you've seen that. And I think that you guys did a great report on how it's impacting our quality of life. And then going back to safe zones, sleeping zones, they can't be in areas where there are children or schools or parks or businesses, because now we're infringing on their quality of life. So as a city, we need to plan on, if this is going to be an ongoing situation that the courts are going to force us to deal with, we need to find locations where it works for the homeless that are trying to just get out of being homeless, but also does not infringe on the quality of life of our other community and our other residents.
Let's turn to the economy here in Albuquerque. We've seen a Walmart there at San Mateo and Zuni, several Walgreens and CVS pharmacies, local restaurants, even a few big retailers closed down. Some of them have cited issues with crime, including theft and vandalism, as a reason for closure. What will you do to spark economic growth in Albuquerque and attract new businesses, make this a city where businesses you feel can truly thrive?
Right. And the first step is to bring crime down. A lot of the problems and challenges that we have is because of the low numbers of police officers, we just don't have enough cops to arrest for the theft and the vandalism. So there's no consequences. There's no accountability. So businesses are closing down because they're like, why? What's the point if our city is not supporting me and supporting my business? So that's the first step. We have to show that we're going to take care of our business community and that we will arrest for these crimes. And we just need to have enough cops to do that. And once we do that, once we've brought down the crime, we need to modernize City Hall. And the other thing that the city does is it fees these small businesses to death, from food inspections to licenses to permits. We need to bring down those fees. We need to make it easier we need to bring down the cost of doing business in this city. It's just too expensive. And so you will continue to see businesses close because now they're paying for 24-hour security. They're paying for additional insurance because of the vandalism rates and theft. So we have to make it cheaper for them to do business in the city.
Mm-hmm. Immigration is another big topic that has, taken up a lot of conversations, not only locally, but nationally. But in municipalities like Albuquerque, how do you feel about local police and jails working with or not working with federal law enforcement like Homeland Security or ICE?
I think we need to collaborate with all our federal agencies in some form or fashion. I think ICE is a separate issue. Like there's DEA, there's the federal FBI. Like if we need to collaborate with our federal agencies, we should absolutely do that because at the end of the day, we're on the same side. The challenge is that ICE, and you've seen in recent news and what they're doing now in Chicago is it's almost, you can't believe that they're just picking up people off the street the way that they are, and some of the videos and not knowing the whole story or what's going on is what's scaring a lot of our residents, and we don't want to see that here in Albuquerque. So what I don't agree is with using Albuquerque police to check papers or check status, and I don't believe that APD wants to do that either. What I've always said is that I'm immigrant friendly. The city ordinance, immigrant friendly, will stay in place, but I'm not criminal friendly. And if there are criminals in our city and we can collaborate with federal agencies to get them out or get them arrested, then that's what we need to be doing.
Mm-hmm. So if someone has been arrested, gets arrested by Albuquerque police or goes to MDC, should immigration authorities be alerted to this person?
If they have, yes. And however, and I've said this, if they've committed multiple crimes, then absolutely. If they have not had any due process, then we should give them due process. But there are, and you'll find it's a low percentage, but if we have arrested somebody that's an illegal and they've committed multiple crimes and have had due process at one point or another and continue to do that, why not collaborate with ICE and be like, hey, here's your guy, man. Get him out of our city because he's not adding any value to our quality of life.
Last question for you.
Yep.
What do you love about the city?
Well, my family's here. My parents are here. 4 of my 5 siblings live here. Most of my nieces and nephews live here. My dogs live here. So that's super important to me. And that's what I love about my city is that not is it just, it's a family-oriented relationship city. We're all based on relationships in the city. And I like that. I really feel like we're the biggest small town in the country. And you can say the food and the weather and all the things, but I think it's the people. And I love just the community that I live in.
And do you have a favorite memory of something here in Albuquerque that goes back?
I think for me, it's with my grandparents. You know, I would be taken away. My father is in the military, so we'd come back here for summers. And so my favorite memory is like being with my grandparents, my grandfather taking me up to Red River, going fishing, or, even going, you can't do it much these days, but fishing in the Rio Grande. But just the outdoor memories with my grandparents.
Mayling Armijo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're here with Darren White, the former sheriff of Bernalillo County. You describe yourself as a proven leader, tough on crime, and, quote, champion for change. Thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here. Thank you. I apologize for the throat. I'm getting over a sinus infection, so you may see me pop a lozenge in my mouth or two, so thank you.
That's all right. Well, let's get started. Crime remains top of mind for a lot of Albuquerque voters. What will you do to reduce crime?
So first of all, let's just say how bad the problem is. Since Mayor Keller has been the mayor, there have been over 750 murders. And that's historic. We haven't seen, if you have to go backwards from when he took office, you'd have to go almost 16, 17 years to get that many homicides. We live in a city that has become very violent and very vicious. The first thing that I would do is I would hire a chief of police that is a proven leader and an inspirational leader, someone that the public can be proud of and the rank and file can be proud of. One of the things I talk about is proactive policing. The mayor likes to say now that he's kind of given up on police officers. He doesn't talk about hiring 1,100. What he talks about is technology and civilians. And I disagree with him. That is not how we're going to fight crime. We got to get back to the basics, and that's doing traffic stops. The mayor likes to say that the speed cameras have taken over that responsibility. Well, here's the problem. A traffic camera won't find somebody with a warrant for their arrest. And so when you do those traffic stops, which is a very integral part of any crime fighting strategy that an administrator would employ, he tells his officers, get out there and stop traffic, because you're going to find people with violent warrants. You're going to find people that have, looking in the car, other things, other problems. So proactive policing. I want to start a juvenile unit. We all understand that juvenile crime has become so out of control. Let's get some detectives in there with specialized training so that we can address this issue. We have kids today that, are very, very violent. Our laws were created for juveniles that used to pack lunches, not guns. And so I'll be an advocate for change as it relates to juvenile crime too.
I want to turn to homelessness and homeless encampments. They have been one thing in the city called safe outdoor spaces. How do you feel about city-sanctioned homeless camps?
Well, we've probably spent upwards of $300 million trying to address the homeless problem through programs and services. And what do we have to show for it? We have city streets, complete city streets, that have been taken over by these encampments. We have businesses and families that live in these areas that are exposed to unimaginable things that happen. I like to say, if the laws go unchecked, the lawless will take over. And that's what the homeless have done. They treat the streets like their own. On day one of my administration, the shelters the tent cities come down. What I will do is I will offer them to take advantage of the many services that are available. And it'll be simple. You can get in this van and go to the Gateway Center or a shelter. If you refuse to do that, the laws will be strictly enforced. And that means you'll be cited immediately for violating the law. And then if you refuse to move off of the street or the sidewalk or a park, you'll be arrested. And for some, I've been so that's cruel. You know what's cruel is families that have to live where employees are cleaning up human waste on our streets and in our parks. That's disgusting. We have businesses that their dumpsters and their buildings are being set on fire every single day. And it's going to end on day one.
Let's talk about the economy. We've seen Walmart, Walgreens, CVS's close, some local restaurants, and even a few big retailers close. Some of them have cited issues like crime, theft, and vandalism as reasons for closing up shop. What will you do to help spur economic growth and make Albuquerque a place where businesses can thrive?
Well, first of all, you have to, like you said, a Walmart closed. Where in the hell does a Walmart close? Because of the crime, because of the theft, and what about all of the CVS drugs, all the Walgreens drugs? We were at a forum 2 days ago, and a man stood up and said to us, his mother got sick, and he had to take her to the ER, and they got discharged at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, with prescriptions that he had to get filled. There was no place in Albuquerque where he could get that prescription filled. He had to drive all the way to Rio Rancho with his elderly mother at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not a city I want to live in. A city where crime has made us shut down all of our businesses. And not only that, not just shut them down at night. If you go into many of these businesses, you can't even walk up and pick up something off the counter. They're all shielded behind plexiglass, and you have to wait for somebody to come in and lock the little door to get even just toothpaste. The problem with that is that many people don't want to wait to have somebody come and open because they're busy. That means they're going to Amazon and the places online. And so our brick and mortar stores are being killed by the crime and by the homelessness and by the theft. And so we got to turn that around. It's critically important for our economic development that we stop this problem and end it. Or otherwise, we're at a tipping point with businesses, not to mention the insurance rates that they're paying. They're paying for the vandalism, and because of the repeated loss, their insurance rates are skyrocketing, and many of them are closing.
Immigration has obviously become a very large topic nationally here. How do you feel about local police and jails working with or not working with ICE when it comes to and federal law enforcement like Homeland Security when it comes to the city?
So it's very simple. If you are in this country illegally and you commit a crime, or you're charged with a crime, your arrest record information should be shared with ICE. And we have enough criminals of our own in Albuquerque. We shouldn't have to say, oh, well, it's okay. It's illegal for them to be in our country. And then if they break the law, they get deported. It's simple. I can tell you right now, there are many people in our city who have committed murder, who were here and committed crimes previously and could have been deported, but because the current administration shields those criminals from apprehension, they're left on our streets to commit more crimes. This is not a controversial issue. We're talking about people here illegally who are charged with a crime. Let ICE have that information so they can start the proceedings to have them removed from our country. And again, it doesn't take much. It's just transporting. We used to do it at the prisoner transport unit. We allowed somebody from ICE to come in with a laptop, open up the laptop, and as people were walking through, everybody that walked through was allowed to be checked. And if they were here illegally, they put a detainer on them. And so I say, yes, we're not talking about victims of crime. We're not people who have not been charged with crimes. I'm only talking about people who are here illegally and are charged with a crime.
Last question for you, Darren White. What do you love about this city?
Everything. I think it's worth fighting for. It breaks my heart to see the condition that it's currently in. We have some gems in our city, like Route 66. I mean, It's the mother road, right? And next year is the 100th anniversary of Route 66. And Congress has set aside a bunch of money because they want all of the route to celebrate this milestone. We all know what Central Boulevard, Route 66 looks like. It's not ready for the party. I assure you, if I'm elected, we will make Route 66 shine and make it something we can all be proud of, something that we can showcase that this is Albuquerque and it's open for business. When your motto is, we called in the National Guard because crime was out of control, when city employees are cleaning up human waste, that is not a Chamber of Commerce moment and not a testament to a city that's open for business. If I'm elected, it will change on day one. We'll clean it up and we'll make it something we can all be proud of again.
Thank you, Darren White. We appreciate your time.
Thanks.
We're here with Alex Uballez, a former prosecutor and prior U.S. attorney for New Mexico under the Biden administration. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so let's start this conversation by talking about crime. It remains obviously a big topic for the voters. What would you do to reduce crime? And do you have anybody in mind in terms of a police chief?
Yeah, so I believe in a public safety approach to looking at crime. Which means we start at the beginning, right? So I believe we need to build a unified 911 dispatch countywide so that all of our first responders are networked. And so we staff it also with first responders, right? So this isn't civilians ascertaining whether or not to send APD, but first responders who can actually pick up the phone and make a call about a situation going on, sometimes deal with it over the phone, or dispatch the proper response. And that's not just, dispatch police versus ACS, though I think that's a really important distinction, but the proper response countywide. Right, because a lot of folks say, I didn't realize I was in the county until I called for help and they told me call BCSO. And so the thing that we need, we are really one community. And I know, that there are lines separating us, but the most important thing is that we serve everybody in our community equally and with the right response. I think we can also do better in sending the smart response to crime. And that, for me, looks like both incorporating intervention and prevention work with our investigative and enforcement work. So one of the things I'd like to see is a domestic violence unit in APD. Domestic violence, as we know, underlies so many of the issues that we face, not just criminally, but in the destabilization of our families, right? In terms of ACEs for our children, in terms of the likelihood of someone being in foster care or on the streets. And so a vertical unit that handles everything from misdemeanors to murders, that also has social service providers, that also has integrated peer support workers, that also has integrated victim witness support, will allow people, when they go out to, say, a misdemeanor domestic violence case, to actually intervene and provide the resources a family might need to not fall into crisis. And so I believe in a comprehensive and intelligent approach to safety that incorporates both our enforcement components and our prevention components.
Homelessness is also a big issue for voters, especially here in Albuquerque. How do you feel about city-sanctioned homeless encampments?
So I think that we're facing a crisis right now. And the crisis is that people don't have places to stay with enough stability, enough support to get off of the streets, right? We have crisis shelters in our gateway system, so on the west side and down on Gibson, but these are only night one crisis responses. If you go out to the west side shelter, you'll find that people have been there for 5 years. It's because they're only served by 3 caseworkers and 0 medics, right? And so there's no way out of the gateway system. And if we think about our encampments and the folks living on the streets, what they are just seeking is that simple stability that lets them build a life up off of the streets. The number one thing I hear from people who are on the streets and have their things thrown away, right, is that they lose their IDs. They lose their personal belongings. One person told me he lost his father's ashes in a sweep by solid waste in the city. And these things make it harder for a person to get off of the streets. Another person told me once they had their own things thrown away, the next day, guess what they spent their whole day doing? Finding the things they needed to survive. And so we need to stop making it more difficult for people to get off the streets, stop making it so easy to get stuck in our shelters, and actually build the transitional housing that we need on the backside of our shelters. So people have the supports, the housing, and the medical treatment that they need to deal with the mental illness and the drug addiction that caused them to be on the streets or stay on the streets in the first place.
Turning to the economy, we have seen several businesses in Albuquerque close. We think about the Walmart there in San Mateo and near Central, several Walgreens, CVS pharmacies, also local restaurants, and even some bigger retailers like Kohl's. Some of them have cited issues with crime, including theft and vandalism, as reasons for their closure. But what would you do to spur economic growth and attract new businesses in Albuquerque to make it a place where business can thrive?
Absolutely. And so, I think you're right. Crime and homelessness are kind of foundational to all of this. If there are folks living in front of your storefronts, it's going to make it more difficult for your business to thrive. And so we actually have to deal with these issues in a meaningful way before we can actually support our businesses and thriving. But once we do that, right, the things we've talked about before in terms of public safety and homelessness, we can be making the world a whole lot easier for our small businesses. And our small businesses are our drivers, right? They have the vast majority of our GRT comes from their work. And they're also, the dreamers, right? These are the dreams of the people who live here and the things they're passionate about and they love. We can make it a whole lot easier for them to succeed by cutting the red tape on the city side and making it so that they can get to their dreams quicker and with fewer bureaucracy, right? So we now require pretty much everyone who does business with the city to become experts in government bureaucracy in checking all of the boxes and moving from division to division to get all the approvals to get their things going. We can flip this and have a customer service mentality so that when people come to the city, they say, this is my great idea. And the city says, okay, well, let us get you through this checklist of things to get it done. Right? Instead of flipping it on you, our job as a city is to serve you and to make sure that you get to pursue your dream to the best of your ability and not get in the way with creating all these requirements and permitting and zoning and inspections. Right? We should make it super easy. I think the other half of economic development is thinking about our kids and their future. We need to be really investing in partnerships with APS so that our kids have trades and skills and opportunities here in the city. So a lot of parents I talk to say that they fear that their children will leave and never come back because they're looking for safety and looking for opportunity. We need to build that here for our kids. And that looks like job training, looks like union and CNM supports in high school. So folks who, for whom college, right, for whom a mathematics degree or a PhD is not the path, find the thing that they love to do and are great at that's also a good paying job and also supports our community because we have a lot of building we need to do here. And so I think investing in our kids is the other half of that equation for economic development.
Let's talk about immigration as well. How do you feel about local police and jails working with or not working with federal law enforcement like Homeland Security or ICE?
Yeah, I think we got enough work to do on our own without doing their job for them, right? And so as the only candidate who has actually done criminal immigration enforcement, I know that there's a smart way to do it, and I know there's the way that the current government is doing it. Right. And so if you look at statistics, you can tell that the story that was told in this last election, which is we're going to go after murderers and rapists and people who are making us less safe, is not true. The vast majority of people who are being arrested by ICE and immigration sweeps are people without criminal histories. At that moment, when we know that we are also facing a crime crisis, we know that our government is not spending its resources well. And it's also breaking the trust of the community, which is most important and foundational. As a career prosecutor, I know that these cases that we build are built on the strength and the bravery and the resilience of victims and witnesses who are willing to call 911 when something's happening and stick with the case all the way through conviction. And if someone is scared to pick up the phone because they're scared, they're going to get deported, or someone else in their family is going to get deported, right? Because we know our federal government is not using its resources intelligently, but instead deporting people who are not a threat to the United States, then we all become less safe. And so I believe we need to build a city that's safer for everybody, and that means everybody.
One quick follow-up there. If somebody is arrested, goes to MDC, has a criminal background to some extent, should immigration enforcement agencies be alerted to that person?
So, this is the conversation, and thank you for asking the question, because this is the very specific conversation I hear in our city council happening. I think that there was a time when this happened, right? I think there was a time when the federal government worked hand in hand with local law enforcement. And I'll tell you, actually, when I was U.S. attorney, we built a ton of cases in partnership with APD, right? They were our close partners. And we also pursued criminal immigration enforcement against folks who were driving misery in our communities. I think about the case of Luis Talamantes, who murdered the mother of a state police officer, who we charged with federal criminal immigration offenses, and followed actually to West Texas to hold them accountable. The problem right now is we're living in a world where the federal government has broken that trust, where the community doesn't trust them anymore. And now it's our job to hold people accountable here and to make sure that the people who are here understand we will protect them from that indiscriminate enforcement. I think it's really important as someone who's extradited people to the United States for justice, myself, that we hold people accountable here. There's a reason we do that. It's because when we remove people from this country, they don't get justice, right? They get released. And so for me as a criminal prosecutor, I know that arresting people here, holding them accountable here, and giving them justice here is the best way to achieve that.
One last question for you. What do you love about the city?
God, just about everything. You know, this is a special place. It's a place I chose. As you know, I wasn't born here. I was born originally from California, moved here after falling in love with my wife, who I've been with since we were 19. And there is just so much to love and to choose about Albuquerque. It's everything from the climate, the sun, the mountains, the culture, the green chili, the fact that this community is so linked, right? I said, I think in another interview with your station that like one question, where did you go to high school, is one that finds you, one link of connection away from people here, right? And it is so special to live in a place that is so deeply connected to one another and so deeply connected to its past.
Alex Uballez, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Eddie Varela is joining us now. You describe yourself as an Albuquerque native with a career in public service from firefighting to school board and city councilor work. Thank you for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so crime remains top of mind for a lot of Albuquerque voters. What will you do to reduce crime?
Crime is the top, and homeless is up there as well. But I started walking on the streets of Albuquerque, visiting businesses 2 years ago. And I've done the whole Northeast Heights business. I've done 80% of it. So I have formulated a crime plan that I believe it will work. And the first thing that we're going to do when we take over as a mayor in the mayor's office, we're going to institute a curfew. 18-year-old kids and under 18 will not be on the streets past 11 o'clock at night. Why a curfew? Because we have a situation now where we have 11, 12, 13-year-old young people murdering people. It's getting worse and worse, and this has to stop. So this is going to be an emergency curfew to stop this. But here's going to be the difference is we're going to get parents involved in this. If we pick up an under 18-year-old and he has a weapon, fentanyl, whatever, the parents will be also called immediately to intervene and see whether that child is going to be arrested or not, because we need to be responsible as parents. Okay. The second thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start a new program in the high schools. It's going to be called Police ROTC, where young people will be taught law enforcement. They'll be taught by retired police officers, and they will learn about law enforcement. When they graduate the first program will be a year. When they graduate, they will be given a certificate that entitles them to a guaranteed job with the police safety aide. And they will move into the police safety aid department. And if I have more students than I have cars, I'll just buy more cars. And once they turn 21 years old, which will be at couple of years, I'm going to absorb them into the Albuquerque police department. I'm a firefighter, but I'm talking about the police department. They'll be absorbed into it, and we can bolster the numbers. And the next thing I'm going to do is a police day work system where I bring in police officers who have retired to work day shifts, and they will be on the streets doing one thing and one thing only, and that's patrolling, because police tell me the key to success in crime is visibility. We don't have that now.
Well, let's turn to homelessness. We mentioned that as a component of crime there, or you mentioned that rather. How do you feel about city-sanctioned homeless camps, or what are known as safe outdoor spaces?
I'm against them. When I began my journey talking to business people, the economic impact from the homeless is a disaster. They're putting people out of business, breaking windows, all the things that you have heard of, and the filthy things and little fires and all of that. To learn about homeless, I walk with the homeless. I go talk to them once a week on First Street and I-40 so that I have a depth of knowledge about the homeless. And I'm going to speak real fast because homeless is a catch-all phrase that doesn't work. There are very many different levels of homeless. My compassion for the homeless is about 20%. People that are born that way, with disabilities, without the physical ability to care for themselves. On the other end of the situation of homeless is with the so-called zombies. That's what they're calling on the streets. Their fentanyl has destroyed their systems in their bodies. They no longer function. Those people need to be in medical facilities. But in the middle, we're going to do this. I'm going to hire private security firms to walk the streets with the homeless, as I do, and understand them. And we're going to find out who out there really wants help, because a lot of homeless do not want help. And the ones in the middle who do not want help, we're going to start citing them for their infractions of the law on the street. Everything from broken windows to defecation to the whole thing. We're going to cite them. Those citations will go to a judge. They will not show up, I know that. And we're going to get bench warrants for their arrests. And I'm going to go up to the homeless in large groups and say, look, I got a bench warrant for your arrest. You want to go to jail? Would you like to go to your hometown? Because 50% of them, they're not from Albuquerque. I know that because I talk with them. And most of them actually do want to go home. I'm going to get them a free ticket home and a ride home, and that's going to be the beginning. But my private security people will identify who they are specifically.
What, if anything, should be done with the homeless encampments that are out there now?
Well, the ones that are there now are going to have to stay until we can reduce the numbers. The reason we have encampments is because there's just too many homeless. Unfortunately, the numbers are being, not given facts. I have from reliable sources within the city that we're at 10 to 12,000 homeless, not 3,000 homeless. And it's just overwhelming our economy. It's overwhelming our medical stuff. If you try to get a doctor's appointment, you're not going to get one. If you want to have a tour of what the homeless is occurring, go to the UNM emergency room. Just go in there and walk in there and see what you're going to see.
Economy is also a big issue here. We've seen Walmarts, Walgreens, CVS pharmacies, local restaurants, and even big retailers close down. Some of them have cited issues with crime, including theft, vandalism. What will you do to spur economic growth and attract new businesses in Albuquerque?
Before we can do any of those things, we've got to get crime under control. It is out of control. The shoplifting, the things that you just mentioned, I know that. I see it. The homeless situation has to be under control. But economic development, it is an all-time low in our city. We have zero growth in the last 3 years. And here's what's interesting. When you go to Rio Rancho, and I live in Taylor Ranch, you cross the line, you see no homeless. You see a cop on every corner. And everybody knows you go to Rio Rancho, you can get a ticket. You see staggering economic growth in Rio Rancho, ballooning, and you have some of the highest academic scores in the state, and you have businesses coming in. Rio Rancho is in the top 3 for ballistic missile factory of some kind. We are at zero growth, and it's because we lack leadership. That's the difference between us and Rio Rancho. Their mayor is a leader. Ours has failed miserably as leadership. And so I am for economic growth, but I'd like to start at the bottom with small business, because those are the ones that have been affected the most by crime and homeless. And you just told me about all the empty ones. Yes, and there's more coming, I know that. So if the big companies can't survive, what chance of the little ones? We're going to fix this problem, and I'm going to do that through leadership and dealing with the economic growth people that make it happen. I've already met with them. We can make that happen, but I have to have leadership in the mayor's office, and I will provide that, I promise you.
What about immigration? How do you feel about local police and jails working with, or maybe not working with, federal law enforcement like Homeland Security and ICE?
I'm glad you asked that. I'm a Hispanic man. I speak Spanish, okay? I am against Sanctuary City, and I'll tell you why. We're neighbors with Mexico. We always have been, and it always worked well until the floodgates are open. We have an abundance of illegal aliens in this town, and they're swarming everywhere. It's affecting our economic growth. It's affecting our wages, and it's affecting the jobs that we have. We can't afford any more homeless. When Mayor Keller did his proclamation that he's going to he's going to enforce Sanctuary City rules, he cost us $80 million in revenue, because we know who's the president now, and he's going to take away all of these grants if we don't do it. We can't afford it. I have nothing against, aliens or illegal as they're called. Not at all. They're humans just like they're creatures of God just like we are. But we're overwhelmed. There's too many. We've got to get it under control. The Mexican people are telling me, cierra la puerta, close the door. There are too many because it's even driving down the wages for them themselves.
If someone is in the country illegally, has a criminal background, is arrested, say they go to MDC, is it something where you would say immigration enforcement agents should be alerted to that person?
No, I'm not going to do that because I grew up in the downtown Albuquerque. I have a situation where I don't like snitches, okay? I just don't. But if they're discovered and they have a criminal past, I will not stop ICE from picking them up and taking them away.
Last question for you. What do you love about this city? What do you love about Albuquerque?
Everything. I was born and raised here. I grew up down here in the Bareilles area, right? Tingley Field used to be there. The zoo was there. I attended the fire academy. I love my city. That's why I'm running. I am a retired firefighter. I have a nice retirement. I have a little part-time business. And what happened is the firefighters came to me and said, you were president of the firefighter union. You were involved. I worked for 6 different mayors. I know how this works. I want my city back. I want it to be the beautiful city it used to be, and I want to do that through leadership and change. I can do this because we're not too far gone to recover from but I love our city, and I want to make it better, and help is on the way.
Eddie Varela, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Chris, thank you.
We're here with Louie Sanchez, a current Albuquerque City Councilor representing parts of the West Side, also a business owner and retired Albuquerque police officer. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Gabby.
Yeah.
Appreciate you having me.
Well, we want to start with crime. It is obviously a big issue for a lot of Albuquerque voters. We want to ask you, what will you do to reduce crime? And do you have anybody in mind as to the role of police chief?
Well, when we're looking at crime on the west side and throughout the city, I actually own a business on the west side. And I see what all the other business owners see that are up and down Central Corridor, up and down Louisiana, San Mateo, 4th Street. All the major thoroughfares in Albuquerque are experiencing a really big issue with crime. And the crime that I see is mostly fentanyl out on the streets. I see large amounts of drug dealing, large amounts of using, and I see people out there picking up prostitutes. And I have not seen that before at all. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and when I worked in Albuquerque, I worked some of the hardest areas of the city, and I've never seen it as bad as it is today. It is worse than I've ever seen in my whole life living here in Albuquerque.
And who would you have in mind for a police chief? Would that be a continuation of Chief Harold Medina or someone else?
Well, right now, Medina will not be my police chief. And I think that's pretty obvious, being the fact that I've been pretty vocal about, accountability. That's basically accountability and transparency. And we need a police chief that's going to do the job to make sure we have the accountability and the transparency and bring the trust back to the citizens of Albuquerque. Currently, the citizens don't feel comfortable with the police chief that they have. There's been scandals, there's been issues that have gone on, and they've happened under this current administration. And we also have a large amount of officers who don't stay. They come in and they stay for the amount of time that they get their bonus, and then after their bonus, then they leave and go to another police department in the area. And it's really, really rough on all of us because we see police officers come in, the morale's low, there's not a lot of transparency, not a lot of backup for the officers. So we need to bring that back. We need to bring back the trust that the community has for the police officers, and we need to make sure that the officers have a sense of purpose and feel like they're wanted here and feel like they're doing a valuable job for the citizens of Albuquerque, and currently they don't have that.
Let's talk about homelessness. How do you feel about city-sanctioned homeless encampments?
Well, I was one of the ones that actually got helped get rid of the encampment that was known as Coronado Park, and that encampment was extremely, extremely bad. I used to drive by it every single day. I had one of my agencies, my insurance agencies, was downtown on Marble, and I was experiencing just a horrendous amount of trouble. I mean, every single day I'd come in, I'd have to pick somebody off the street that was sleeping on my front door, and they were urinating and defecating right in my property, and I was right at Marble and 3rd Street, and it was just unbelievable. And then when I would drive back and forth out of here, I was driving right by the Coronado Park area, and one of the things that I did know and I did see while I was brand new city councilor was that it was so crazy and so much crime there that even to use the bathroom, you had to pay an extortion fee to go into the bathroom. It was so bad. And that's criminal. And then you could see the amount of drug dealing, and, as you know, that, it's going to take years for that property to come back to life. And there's this huge amount of issues with the soil and needles, and, it could still be very dangerous.
Let's turn to the economy. We have seen a Walmart here in Albuquerque, several Walgreens and CVS's closed, local restaurants, even a few big retailers like Kohl's at Coronado Center closed down. Some of them have cited issues with crime, including theft and vandalism, as reasons for those closures. What would you do to spark economic growth here in Albuquerque, attract new businesses, make this a place where business thrives?
Nice. I'll touch real quickly on the issues that we had. Right now, we have some of those businesses that are closing down, and I had a really good friend who actually was a manager at the Walmart that closed down, and she happened to tell me that they were losing $7 million per year at that Walmart that was just walking straight out the door. It was just unbelievable. And no business can sustain when you have that kind of criminal activity going on. So it was a really sad situation. And, we have also seen Walgreens and we've seen some other, and Kohl's closed down. But another thing that's hard too is that some of the business owners in Albuquerque, when they're out here, you've seen it with the Walgreens on the west side, is that they call the police because they need help. And when you call the police because you need help, and you call the police more than once, the city was turning these individuals, these poor victims, into nuisances. And that was really, really awful. So businesses are stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to make money, trying to call the police, and then being labeled as a nuisance and getting fined. So bottom line, we need to deal with the criminal element that's on the street. Once we deal with the criminal element on the street, then we'll probably start seeing a lot of movement in reference to the homeless issues, because these people out there's only 2% of the people that want to come in. The sheriff made a statement not too long ago that only 2% of the people will actually ask for help, and then maybe or maybe not take it. But in terms of economic development, one of the things that I'd like to do is the city has a bond rating. We can use that bond rating so that we can incentivize small business growth or large business growth. So when you come to Albuquerque and you want to start a business, or you're an entrepreneur, and you want to start your own business, or you want to scale up or even have another location, we can actually use the city's bonding power, give them 10 years to pay that money back. But they can start right now. They can get their build out done. They can hire their employees. They can pay 2 or 3 months of payroll. And that way we can start moving the ball and getting these people in here and start working their business. Also, another thing that goes along with that is every single business in Albuquerque is so very important. Every business that we have right now currently that's in operation, we have to prioritize that they grow and that they maintain their business, and we have to keep them operational.
Immigration, let's talk about that for a second. How do you feel about local police and jails working with or not working with federal law enforcement like Homeland Security or ICE?
Well, I'm a longtime police officer. I'm against sanctuary city status. And we always worked with each other. When I was a task force agent at the APD, I worked under the New Mexico Violent Gang Task Force, and during that time as a task force agent, I was actually working with every federal law enforcement agencies, and all law enforcement agencies cooperate with each other, no matter what it is, and that's for the sole purpose of taking the bad guy, the criminal element, off the street.
One last question we have for you. This is about Albuquerque. What do you love about the city?
Oh man, you know what I love about the city is that you can come outside every morning and just have a different experience. I live up on the west side and I get to see the sunrise every single day from my front door. And to me, that is probably the most amazing thing. Another thing I like about Albuquerque is that we are so diverse. And we have an amazing group of people and my friends and family, and we're just all intertwined and we all get along so well. You go into other areas and people don't get along like you see them in Albuquerque. Here we get along. We can go out and talk to anybody, socialize with anybody, laugh with anybody, have a joke with anybody. You might have different political ideas. You might have different ways of doing things or running your life. But bottom line is we all can talk to each other and we all can hang out and have a good time together. And I think that's what we need to do when we move forward in the mayor's office. I'm willing to work with every single person out there.
Louie Sanchez, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Gabby.
Mayor Tim Keller is joining us now. You've held office of Albuquerque mayor now for 2 terms, seeking a 3rd term now here in November. You're born and raised here, father of 2 children. Thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be on. Appreciate your podcast.
Yeah, so let's just get into it. Crime remains top of mind for a lot of Albuquerque voters. What will you do to reduce crime? And will Chief Medina stick around as your police chief?
So just right up front, I will be looking for a new police chief next year, and I've said that repeatedly. But what we've been able to do with respect to how we fight crime in Albuquerque is very different. And I think you have to go back to when I came into office, we had a department that was literally in shambles. We had the DOJ consent decree, we had hundreds of officers leaving, and crime was going up. And so basically crime continued to go up until just last year. What changed is we made a decision to invest in technology and civilians. And so we have gunshot detection license plate readers and cameras now as a technology crime fighting shield over about 20% of the city. And I want it to be over 100%. That's why I'm asking for another term. But in that time, what's happened is now, if you look at something like if you shoot someone in Albuquerque, it used to be a 50% chance we would catch you. That's terrible. Now, because of the cameras and the gunshot detection, there is a 99% chance we will arrest you and we will put you in jail. That is one of the highest clearance rates in the country because we fight crime differently with technology and with civilians. The civilian part is all about the notion of folks taking calls to free up officers so they can focus on violent crime. And that's where the Community Safety Department of Social Workers that takes all the down and out calls, mental and behavioral health, they've taken 150,000 calls that APD did not take. That is awesome. So it's freed up officers to actually fight violent crime. And so what we see now is, I know we have a long way to go and it might not feel safer, but we know for the first time in 10 years, every crime category is down. And so if we continue that pace, we are all going to feel a lot safer. That's why I'm asking for another term.
I want to turn to homelessness. It's obviously been a very large topic in the 2 terms that you've served Albuquerque so far. You've been a supporter of the safe outdoor spaces, even tried to expand upon those in some way. But I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that program? And also, in tandem, what happens to the Gateway Center in your next term?
Well, what we've seen is a similar story to crime in that when I came in, our city didn't have a single person whose job it was to think about homelessness. Not one. And not one to think about housing either. So I had to build this literally from scratch. And so also, relatedly, we would take care, like how many people did the city take care of every night when I came in? 0. We didn't do anything. So we have built the Gateway system from scratch. We use best practices from multiple cities. The Gateway concept was an older idea from a past administration that we actually did. And now we have 5 different gateways. So the answer to your question is we've got to have a variety of answers because the challenges on the streets have also the same variety. So we have a family gateway, we have a teen gateway, we have addiction treatment, which is a recovery gateway. We also have a sobering tank, like the gateway, the old-fashioned sobering tank, like people used to call it. That's called medical sobering. And we also have medical respite. And then we have 2 housing navigation centers. When you put all of this together, the gateway system now helps 1,000 people off the street every single night. The challenge is there's 5,000 still on our street. So that's why we have to continue to layer in solutions, because there is no one answer. So yes, one is I do think we should have small, safe outdoor spaces, just 15 tents or less. And they're just at a church parking lot or whoever wants to sort of help take care of them. But it's part of a spectrum of services. And that's what we've been building and investing in. And since we were basically 40 years behind on this issue, yeah, it's taken some time. But 1,000 people off our streets, I think we can get another 1,000 off our street by continuing to expand the gateway and safe outdoor spaces and do eviction prevention on the front end and absolutely more housing on the back end.
Let's switch to the economy. We've seen Walmart, several Walgreens, CVS pharmacies, even local restaurants, and a few big retailers closed down. Some of them have cited issues with crime and theft and vandalism for closing down. What would you do to spur economic growth and attract new businesses, make this a place where businesses can thrive?
Well, I appreciate you said some, because that's true. Most of them have not. In fact, Walgreens and Walmart, CVS's are closing all over the country. And so we're not immune to national trends. And that works both ways. That includes trends that everyone's shopping at Amazon now instead of CVS, but it also includes trends like fentanyl. And fentanyl is the root cause of the challenges for public safety and for the unhoused. So that's why first, to address both those issues, you have to look at both of them. And so the solutions that we've come up with around having more recovery beds and addiction treatment and supportive housing, these are all things that our administration is doing and we can do more of. So we know what works. We've just got to go full throttle forward. And it's the same with crime. That technology platform, 20% of the city, if we had it over 100% of the city, I think we'd have fewer closings. But more to your point, we do still have to grow the economy. The answer is also jobs. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we need. So what we're doing is, number one, we are investing heavily in the future, like the next generation of the economy for our city. And that is definitely fusion and quantum computing. These are like crazy things, but they all have to do with our expertise coming out of the labs and harnessing the power of atoms to either power a computer or to create totally renewable and sustainable energy. And we announced 1,000 new jobs coming with Pacific Fusion just last month, and we have 6 companies coming from quantum computing. Those are the jobs that are going to keep our kids here, and they're the jobs that people are going to move back to Albuquerque for. Lastly is small business, the backbone of our economy. And we have an increment of 10 programs. So the idea is we're going to consolidate all our incentives so that you can hire 10 more people in your small business over the next year.
I want to turn to immigration. Obviously, earlier this year, your administration reaffirmed the immigrant-friendly status for the city, which very much puts a difference in place in terms of what the city employees can do in their work around ICE and federal immigration enforcement. But just to ask you on the record, do you feel Albuquerque should be working or not working with federal law enforcement like Homeland Security and ICE, or doing anything different in that realm?
Well, I don't, which should be not a surprise to anyone. So, I was the one who created these policies in Trump 1. And it's because of 2 reasons. Number one is for public safety. Our city is safer if everyone feels safe to call the cops. If I'm experiencing domestic violence, I shouldn't be worried about calling the officers if there's a family member staying at my house and I'm not sure, their documentation or their status. Like, you just need to be safe and call the cops and get help and not worry about that. And the related example is our officers don't want to be ICE agents. They signed up to serve our community and to protect us and keep us safe, and that's what they want to do. They did not sign up to be ICE. The other reason is it's a value about our families. And I don't believe any city should be a place where papers are checked when you go to a library or a school or a hospital. And no one should be profiled just because of the color of their skin and detained by ICE while they figure out their status. So I don't think we should cooperate with ICE. Now, I will say this. If you were doing something illegal in the city, APD will arrest you. it goes both ways. They're not going to ask you for your status. They're just going to arrest you. So I believe this actually helps public safety. And and I also believe it's a value. It's a family value in New Mexico that we should keep our families together. So, targeting kids at school is just, I think it's un-American.
Last question for you, Mayor Keller. What do you love about this city?
Oh, there's so much. I mean, I was born and raised here, and I love everything big and small, from concerts downtown to our amazing cuisine, to the amazing scenery and everything in between. But to me, I think what is really special is the people. We're a strong and resilient community because, number one, of our diversity and our history. And what you get is a unique mix in Albuquerque of an authentic community that has retained cultures over time, whether it's Native American, whether it's Hispanic, or even it's now in sort of the refugee version. We have the Asian community. We also have a vibrant Black community. And these are things that have come together in a combination at like the city at the crossroads. And that combination is, to me, more unique and more authentic than anywhere else in America. You can argue maybe like in New Orleans or like Hawaii. I mean, they got some pretty good culture shtick too. I get that. But for me, this is the most unique place in America, and it's because of its people.
Okay, Mayor Keller, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
You got it.
Big thanks once again to all 6 of the candidates taking part in our mayoral election conversation. We want to remind you, Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th, and early voting has already started. If no candidate gets more than 50% of the vote, the city's rules are that the top 2 candidates will go to a runoff election, and that runoff election will basically happen weeks after Election Day, but sometime in December.
Yeah, so a technical note to voters, there will be 7 candidates on the ballot, you'll notice, including those you heard from today and business owner Daniel Chavez. While he did qualify for the ballot, we did not interview Mr. Chavez for our coverage because he announced in late September that he was dropping out of the race, so he was not actively campaigning for mayor anymore. But we, again, appreciate all the candidates coming on. We hope you learned something from each of them and, are a more informed voter when you go in to cast your vote.
Yeah, and certainly a reminder, if you want to see the process of how we ordered those candidates, it wasn't a random draw. And Gabby, you're going to post that video essentially on your social media.
Yes, and I'll ask KRQE to collaborate. So you should be able to see our behind the scenes, full transparency process on how Annalisa helped us randomly select the appearance of these candidates. You can also always reach out. I'm Gabrielle.Burkhart@krqe.com via email and gburknm on social media.
I'm at Chris McKee TV, also chris.mckee@krqe.com. Thanks for watching and listening.